season. Good sense of what you got, probably. What do you have, and what do you like about it? What are you concerned about?
Yeah, well, one, I mean, I love being around this team. Practices, games, post game, all of those things have been fun, and I think that really, in just about every game we've had, has shown itself. And I like the depth that we have. I think that's real. I like the competitiveness that we have, the energy that we have as a group. Um, and so I really do, in this day and age where there's so many new people and new pieces and things, I do like the chemistry that this group has formed and the energy that we play with and the togetherness that we play with.
Speaking of that new age, what would you ask of your administration, if you could, to put Richmond in a better place, college basketball?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. Well, number one, I would say how much I appreciate our administration and how much they've done. We've I've been here a while, but we've renovated the Robins Center. We've added a practice facility. We, do a whole lot of things that are really, really first class. Now that this revenue sharing model or the NIL is in place, there has to be, you have to have uh, an understanding of what's going on out there. And so, some groups will say the Georgia football team is payroll is in, 25, $35 million. Well, we see in recruiting, you see that some lower level programs that would never expect are paying a whole lot of money for incoming freshmen. And so I think it's really hard to have an accurate picture of the landscape right now because there are no guidelines or rules or accounting of anything. So you're going a little bit on rumor, a little bit on pretty solid sources, but you have to have an understanding of it. And I think that's what's I think it's up to us more than it is the administration to make sure that we keep them informed and abreast of what is going on and what do things look like out there. An advantage we have is that we're such a great school. Um, that comes with a little bit more of a demanding admissions process. We've always embraced that. We thought that hey, the guys that can get into Richmond, they're going to want to be here. An incredible place. It'll be an incredible experience. Those things have shifted a little bit, even from the very best of kids or best of students or best of families, because the money is so great. So I think it's just us being in great communication, um, really having the best understanding of we can of what's going on out there and how Richmond can take advantage of our many strengths to make sure that uh, we're in a position to do as well as we possibly can. And so, there are a lot of responsibility on our end first, I think, and then we feel very supported by the university.
Hey, will you again address gambling with your guys in the wake of the last couple of days?
I will. I think, I I feel, I'm not a big sports gambler myself, and a lot of my friends are. Um, I've never really liked that. I don't like fantasy football and all. And I would tell our guys not to do it. I don't know how much weight that carries when these guys have grown up with betting apps and gambling. All the commercials that I see watching football on Sundays seems like gambling's pretty fun. And so, um, how it leads to fixing a game or fixing a half of a game. You know, I don't think that's a very new story. I think probably because it is so prevalent, the 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 investigative people can find out more or notice the shifts in the betting markets. But I think it's pretty difficult to say gambling's fun. You should bet. You should have this app. Have a fantasy football team. Constantly, we have to do injury reports now. 2 hours before the game, the betting lines are on every app that I see. That's just a score app. Um, and then we're supposed to say that you guys shouldn't touch it and can't do it. That's pretty tough, I think.
The point shading aspect of it, does that concern you in terms of
I've been accusing guys of point shaving for a long time, John. It does, but I think there's maybe a little bit of the belief of, hey, if we start paying the players, this won't be an issue. I think what you find is human nature says that probably be more of an issue. Somebody who has $10 wants 20, somebody who has $1 billion wants 2 billion. So, yeah, I think it's, I also don't think it's as, you picture this with somebody they meet on the street and, they're in the wrong place and these people are trying to fix a basketball game, with phones and the communication and text messaging. I don't think it's as, I'm sure the kids wouldn't have thought, I know they probably knew it was wrong, but I don't think it doesn't seem as dirty as it used to be because they can communicate so easily with these people in chats or text and things like that. So, yeah, I think that's horrible. And I think they'll probably do everything they can to make sure there is no, if the games aren't on the level, that's really, that really destroys the sports industry, which is so popular and so great. So, um, you know, all the things I worry about, that's on the list, but I don't really, I try not to think about it too much. And hopefully this really sends a big scare into everybody who plays college sports.
Have a two-parter about the depth you mentioned briefly. How will, I guess, your depth play a significant role in a game like Saturday
Mm-hmm.
against St. Louis? And how, apologize, I did ask this before, but I don't remember, just how that has changed your coaching style to a certain degree with you having more options that you feel comfortable in on the bench.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one, I think on Saturday it could really help. St. Louis plays at an extremely fast pace. We play at a fast pace. So I think having bodies in there is really important and could help us. And we've had, many different leading scorers or double figure scorers and guys who play well and different times, depending on the matchup or the night, whatever it is. So I think it could really be a big help to us. Also, it'd probably be good for us to throw as many guys as we can at them because they're so good offensively and defensively. I think it has changed or it has impacted the way we coach and just that they're, you know, um, focusing on that and focusing on being aggressive and not worrying about maybe what has happened in the past. I think I talk to the officials less. Because we're always subbing or considering the subs. So I think it has had a positive impact. And I think that, I think the depth and the pace are married and we're trying to really push the ball and push the pace and do those things. So I think that keeps all of us, all the coaches and all more engaged on the next play and how this play is developing rather than a mistake that we might have made before.
Incredibly tough matchup on Saturday. The whole A-10 just seems deeper. Have you noticed that when you look at tape and all the things that you prepared for and see while you're studying?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, they're great, and their stat sheet is as good as I've ever seen. I remember when Temple was in our league a couple seasons, they had stat sheets that were just eye popping, and this one is as good as I've seen. And yeah, I think the A-10 is terrific. Even Roussell had come in; they had just played St. Louis, and they looked their bodies and their ability looked pretty good to me, and so. There's a high level, that teams are all very, very, very committed. Now another step of that commitment in the NIL. So there are a lot of really good players, a lot of really old players. So yeah, I think it's terrific, and it's tough because the way college basketball is set up right now. And just because we're playing St. Louis, I think they played one high major team this year. I think when over time, when Xavier, Temple, Butler was in the league for a year, Richmond, we played 4 and 5 high major teams and had all these opportunities. And so, it's not a conspiracy. If it's true, we're just being blocked out from playing those teams. And I'd love to have seen Richmond, St. Louis, Dayton, VCU play more and more high major games that give ourselves opportunities because, the criticism is going to be the lack of quad one wins. And it's certainly hard to, it's hard to have any quad one wins with any quad one games. So.
Speaking of quad one wins, you guys have the only non-conference quad one win
right. Yeah.
How does that prepare you for success?
Yeah, it does actually. That's a great point. I think Belmont's really an outstanding team and similar to St. Louis in a different way, but their offense is just elite, and very, very difficult to defend. Now they do it a little bit differently, but some really great basic ideas with cutting and movement and pace. Um, but we feel like we defended very well there. And we feel like we've had pockets. I thought the other night against LaSalle, we had a great defensive game, maybe our best defensive half in the second half. And that's what it calls for because they come at you so, in such a big way, as does Belmont. So we're gonna have to draw on that and some of the other performances we've had to be able to defend.
High-level programs like Gonzaga and UConn have very strong documented collaboration between their men's and women's programs. Given your success and Coach Roussell's success, can you speak to any collaborations that you guys have had to make each other better or plan to have to make each other better?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot. One, I have tremendous respect for them, and since the day he got here, their kids are in the gym all the time. And that's usually a sign. That's really a good sign culturally of a program. But they're always in the gym, and we have to share the space a lot more. Thank goodness we have all these spaces to share. That's one. I think the way they play is beautiful. I love how skilled they are, how much movement they have. Sometimes when you play skillfully and you move, what you don't see is how confident the players are, and because, in my opinion, that's because they're empowered to make those decisions. So I'm really, really love the way they play. And then, we've become really good friends. I love his family. His son Riley is somebody I follow in basketball. He's over at Benedictine, and he's come to our camp, and my boys have hung out with him. So we've become close like that. And I think we talk basketball and have to kind of see it similarly. So, yeah, I think I'm lucky that Aaron's there. Obviously, all of Richmond's lucky, and it's something that's important to us, especially because I think the way they play and how they've been able to do it.
How do you neutralize opposition?
Yeah, that's a good question. He's really such a unique player, such a great passer. And he's not going to obviously tear the rim down on you, intimidate you like that, but he can be intimidating because of his calm relentlessness. He's always a threat. Whenever he has the ball, he's a threat for an immediate assist or a basket. I think last year he took 20 shots against us. He's not playing as many minutes. In some ways, that's depending on how many he makes, of course. In some ways, that's positive because these other guys are scoring at such a high rate. But he's somebody you have to pay attention to for the full 30 seconds. And a lot of times he's the trailer in transition, but he's just so deadly at the top of the key with all the things that he can do and how confident he is. And so I don't know exactly if we can, but we're going to try. We're going to try to give him as many different looks and a different defensive reads to make as we possibly can. But he's a special player and one of many really great pieces they have.
So you're about halfway through the season, a little bit more. You got to have a handle on your group now, or what do you see?
Yeah, probably like a lot of other mid-Januaries of other years, even to last season. I think sometimes you get caught up romanticizing how great last year was, but sometimes you go back to old film and you go back to old notes of yours and you realize that, we were struggling through some other things, last year at this time too. Happy with our offense, probably especially even more so as of late, not just with Maggie and her explosion, but I think the ball's moving better, taking care of the ball better. I think we're getting quality shots. The defensive end, especially the last game, I don't think we're where we need to be, and I think that's a little bit of playing new people and new roles, maybe a little bit of kind of the long minutes that some of these kids have had. So it's a work in progress. I do think we need to get better defensively, and that'll be the focus.
In this new era of college basketball, where do you think Spiders women's program is in relation to the future?
Yeah, I think I said at the end of last season, I don't, for as much success as we had, I don't think we hit our apex. I think there's still things out there. With all due respect to this year's group, I still like to think that we're ascending. and hopefully that means over the next 2 months. But however this season ends, I don't, we're all smart, right? It's not like, oh my God, Maggie Dugan's leaving, Rachel's leaving, and all of a sudden we have to regroup. I think where we have put ourselves with regard to the rest of the country landscape-wise, to Maggie Dugan's credit and some of these other players' credit, I think it's an attractive spot right now. I think our administration, our school president have made sure that basketball is a priority here. So I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I don't think this has to regress to where we've been before and then all of a sudden rebuild. I think they've put us at a spot that this can continue to grow.
In response to the allegations of gambling in college basketball, I wonder if you've addressed that issue with your team, or do you before the season, or regularly?
Yeah, regularly, maybe. I think definitely something, but before the season. Obviously, we were off yesterday, but with the news coming out, it's always a good reminder for our players. Everybody thinks of like the point shaving, all of this, but sometimes with kids, it's just the casual question that somebody thinks that they have for you. Obviously we're close with our men's team, and somebody may be asking something about something with the men's program, and I don't know if our kids even think about that, but you realize that maybe just asking something different. I don't know how much this comes up, but AAU coaches sometimes are asking questions of their players and getting information. So I think there is some education out there. I think the easy part is don't gamble. And that means, hey, yeah, what are you talking about? I don't have a FanDuel app on my phone. I'm not gambling. But I think there's some other, gathering information that we try to educate with our players to be smart about.
Do you have an idea of what this team's identity is and why?
Identity is a word that we use quite a bit. It's something that, frustratingly so, I don't know that we had that even when the season started back in November. I think we were on our way and still are on our way. I mean, again, you can't watch us and, you're smart enough to know what the opponent's scouts are of you're really concerned about Maggie and Rachel and Allie. And, I think we're, offensively, at least numbers wise, have been really, really good, especially compared to the rest of the league. I kind of, maybe to answer your question, I maybe know what our identity is right now, and I don't know if it's exactly what I want it to be. I think we got to be a little bit tougher, a little more physical, and better defensively. And that's the message today. Is we've been fortunate enough to win a lot of championships, and none of the championships have been won by poor defensive teams. And I don't know that we're in the poor category, but I think we lapsed a little bit last game, and that needs to be readdressed.
How do you turn that around for Sunday?
You can come watch our film session today and join our film session. There's going to be a lot of positives because we scored 85 points. I think there was a lot of positives. I'll let the cat out of the bag here. There's going to be a quick pivot during the film session today of it being really good, people feeling good, and then not so much. Some of this is an effort thing. Some of this, again, I think we've prided ourselves in staying out of foul trouble. Not putting people at the free throw line, not having to manage foul trouble. Sometimes you get a little caught up, and part of this was getting out to a big lead the other day. I felt like we were a little bit more in protection mode, and not forcing turnovers and just kind of casually playing defense and being there and hoping they miss. We can't be a hope they miss defense. We've got to affect some things better than what we did on Wednesday.
Been doing some pub this week about Operation Code Red, kind of fill the gym on Sunday. How excited are you to see that gym get filled and have a packed house?
Yeah, let's hope hope the weather holds off. Let's hope that everything goes right. I know the games happen before any football goes on in Saturday or Sunday afternoons. I really appreciate the administration and our team really making a big concerted effort to get people out there. I think you've seen the growth just from us, but nationally, but from us and our crowd over the last few years. Everybody that comes back keeps talking about how much fun they had, and I'm glad they were here, and it's going to continue to grow. So I think the more people we get in here will be great for Sunday. I just hope that translates to bigger crowds in the future as well.
Maggie was the fourth leading scorer with 13 points.
Okay.
And you scored 85.
Yeah.
What does that say about the growth of your team and maybe opposing scouting reports?
Yeah.
At some point, she doesn't have to score 48.
Right. Yeah, a huge positive for us. I mean, again, I think we've been able as a team to score a lot of points, and throughout the season we've had some lapses, and even the Davidson game when she put up 48, I think we had 21 at the half. I wasn't sure we were going to get to 48 as a team. I think just kind of the nature of our offense has been very Maggie centric. That wasn't by design, but I think she just got to a point where we were really good with the ball was in her hands. And I think as a coach, you're looking down the road, we still have a point guard that's really good with the ball in her hands. So I think Allie Sweeney generating some offense, even with, Maggie, would she only have 13 the other night? I still think she played a really smart game. And Rachel was fantastic. Allie was fantastic. And I think, Alicia getting her back was huge. So I know that we're not Maggie centric. I don't think we have to go through Maggie. I think some of her best games have been when we haven't really gone through her. It's just been the nature of how people have defended us. And quite honestly, sometimes she's getting points off of how they're guarding Rachel or how they're guarding Allie as well.
Coach, high-level programs like Gonzaga and UConn have strong documented collaboration between their men and their women's programs. Given your success and Coach Mooney's success, do you guys have any direct collaboration to make each other better, or do you plan to do that in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got a pretty good resource across the hallway, especially when it comes to offense. I think when we change some things and tweak some things here with our offense, I was hopefully not annoyingly so, but I've been in his office a fair amount, picking the brains of their staff. I don't know how much people around here appreciate the respect that Coach Mooney has across the country, especially with the offense and, the Princeton background and all of that. But, so many women's coaches too recognize that. Oh, hey, I've been watching your men do this and they do this, really, really well. So I'd be a fool not to use them. I probably was better, this year it's been a little bit tougher, but trying to watch them and in practice was able to be at the St. Joe's game, probably the game I watched the most this year. So yeah, they're a fun study. I think as a student of the game, being able just to pop your head in to an office or to the gym downstairs, I think is a huge resource for me.